How is everybody? Oh, good. I thought you guys had gone home. My name is Alan Harris. I'm a Noongar man and a Wongai man from Western Australia. And my tribal lands as the Noongar stretches from Geraldton in the north to Southern Cross in the west, the east, south to Esperance, and all around the south coast. Hometown is considered Margaret River. And for those who like Margaret River and the beautiful red and white tablets that you share each weekend, otherwise known as wine, it's a great place to come from. The Wongai tribe lands are in the Central Desert, which ranges from Southern Cross in the west of that area, all the way up to Mount Margaret, down to Cocklebiddy, which is now a roadhouse on the in the Desert Run. We've got somebody trying to get in here. And so that's where I came from. Just to mention something about the diversity of this country before we all go any further, so that we're all on the same boat. In this country, there are 324 different nations. There are 324 different Aboriginal tribes. This is not one group of Aboriginal people. When we're talking about Australia, we're not talking about just one country. We're not talking about one language. We're not talking about one language group. We're talking about 324. And one of them, which I really want to acknowledge and thank for us being here on the land, is the Kulin people and the Kulin nations, as which my brother over here mentioned the clans, the 5 clans. We've got Bunurong and Wurundjeri. And these people are just so passionate about their land, it's fantastic. To be able to be a part of this country, to be able to be a part of the history, and to be able to do it from this platform of Victoria is an absolute passion for myself and my family. Once again, my family's over there. My wife, give them a wave. That's Leonie. Everyone say, hello, Leonie. Very good. And Aslan, give him a wave. And the other one's Tristan, but we call him Pancakes. Because he loves to eat lots of pancakes. Guys, we're all teachers. We teach in schools. We travel all over the world teaching. And because of our association with Culture Infusion and Peter Mustafariadis, it's the vehicle that allows us to be able to go out into this country, all over this country, and not only share, but also to open up people's eyes about what this country is all about. With the number of tribes, the 324 tribes, the 324 languages, because of that diversity, we cannot put one Aboriginal nation in one box. And this is where it's so hard to depict what we're going to do. We have on the national agenda now the treaties and things like that. What I want you to understand is this, is that just like in the land, the land wars over in the Middle East, no one will agree on a boundary. Also to understand is this, if you have 2 tribes, one bordering the left, one bordering the right of a river, over a period of time, which is what we're talking about here now, we can have erosion, and the cycle of that river will change. Whereas to an Aboriginal person, it's not where the river was, it's where the water is accessible. And so this is what started land disputes between a lot of the tribes. And we don't even know if that 324 is actually the final figure of how many different language groups. And so we have a diversity in Australia that is just beyond all understanding. You cannot mention Europe. We've got Britain moving out of the European Common Market. All these things are happening. You cannot do that in Australia because everything in Australia, all the Aboriginal cultures are so different and so within themselves that it is very hard and each one is very different. When I said earlier about being a white or a black elephant in the room, I didn't say that out of disgust. I said that because every time I have been, and brother, you'll know this, when we go to a government-run community meeting, and you've got all the non-Aboriginal bureaucrats sitting up, and they're talking about this, that, and everything else, and yet we are usually left out, isn't that right? We're not asked what our advice is. We are adults, we are families, we are mums, dads, we are grandparents, we are uncles, aunties, we are grandchildren. We have our passion, we have our dreaming. You may not spend 20 years out in the bush learning about the bush dreaming because you're born with it. And that is the difference. And when we're asked, and that's why I said I don't feel like that here today. which is so nice, because when I first cut in here, I thought, here we go. Again, I'm going to be sitting down talking about how we're going to help the poor Aboriginal people. But no, what I see here and what I've just myself here is seeing, okay, well, let's get an understanding of where we all fit into this. Our message is very simple with what we do in the schools. My personal story is I'm a victim of the stolen generation. I was taken off my mum. My mother's 3 older half-sisters are the ladies who are the subject of Rabbit Proof Fence. I'm sure most of you have seen that movie. They are my immediate family. They're not a family that's associated somewhere else. They are my immediate family. I was put into that same mission. I was tortured as a youth in these missions. I didn't even get the chance to speak my language, didn't even get a chance to know who my family was. And then after leaving that, I was adopted, hit the streets of Perth, formed gangs, got incarcerated just because of the craziness of the time. I hated white people and I hated black people because I was not accepted by anybody. What I found was there are 30 other guys like that. And so we just caused our own little grievances with the police and the welfare officers and the do-gooders. And so that's where my life started. There's a guy called Rob Riley. He's an Aboriginal activist many, many years ago. He's my best friend. He committed suicide. The media pushed him to his death. He was the head of the Aboriginal Legal Service. He was the one who first started the Stolen Generation Inquiry. Another 2 people that were on the streets with us at that time were Pat and Mick Dodson. Pat Dodson now is a senator in Australian politics, a legend. The 4 of us sat years ago when I started going to university in Perth. I didn't want to live in a house, so I used to go and steal things. This is how I only knew life, guys. Don't judge me on that. And so I stole beds and cupboards, and I set up a camp opposite a university in Perth, and I lived in that place, and I went to studies every day, used the gym for showers and the cafeteria for food. The 4 of us sat there one day, shattered by our own educations, a lack of it. Where are we going to go with Australia? Why can't Aboriginal people be not only heard, but also taken back to their families? Now, it's a long stretch, and 40,000 years is a long time for Mungo man and Mungo woman. But that's just too long. That is way too long. And sir, your champion causing that, I'd take my hat off to you. Fantastic. Only, what was it, Lee, about 6 weeks ago? 6 weeks ago, my great-great-great-grandparents' bones were found just out of a town called Menzies, buried in the ground. And it was only after, I only found that out 6 weeks ago, and it was only after it was taken down to the university and checked out that these are my relatives. Now we've got the big problem in the law courts. Where do we take them back? When do we bury them? How do we bury them? This is supposed to be an issue for the family, but it's not. And this is where, as soon as we sort this stuff out, and instead of taking it to a law that was brought into this country, I think first off, humanity law should be the first thing recognised. And that is the humane way of things of doing it. And so with Mungo Man, that's fantastic. I support and I will stand with you, sir, when that happens. I've just written a few things down here that I wanted to talk about. This isn't about me, this is about myself and my family, this is about my life as an Aboriginal. We teach in schools, we teach probably about 320 odd shows or performances a year. That is not exaggerating. We're never home. We're always somewhere travelling or teaching. Every day we're working, thanks to Peter and the staff at Culture Infusion. We've been working at that rate for, I think, about 7 years, Peter, and it really built up, didn't it? We do not have government funding. We don't want it. We don't need it. We get sponsorship every now and then, but the work we get paid for is what we earn, and so we continually work. In the quiet times, there are times when we have to go busking on the streets, and actually that can be a lot of fun sometimes, but it can also be a struggle. For us, we have reached over 1 million children in this country alone. I'll say that number again, over 1 million students. We have teachers now that used to be students when we first started with Culture Infusion, and that was 15 years ago, Peter? 15 years ago. Hey, that's what we're doing. We need support. This guy here, Peter Mustafariadis from Culture Infusion, he needs support in many ways. If we're to continue doing what we're doing and supporting what our brothers are doing, and not only just getting bodies back, but just keeping it up on a national agenda. That is the harshest thing. We have some good people around now who are talking, rather than, like, I'll just go back a step, sorry. As soon as we had the National Sorry Day, one of the most amazing things that I saw and was a part of was the Pontian community, the Greek community in Melbourne, the people of the sea. They contacted the elders here and us, and they said, look, we want to be traditionally welcomed into this country, because we never were. And they were the first people of any people to ask for that. And so in front of 30,000 people, the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Premier, we had a show there, and then we had the local elders welcome a Pontian to this country. Better late than never, but better never late. You guys hear what I'm saying? This is a country, this is a sacred country. We're talking about sacred. The whole world is sacred. Land is sacred. We tell children, I don't care if you've been just in Australia for 3 months, if you call yourself an Aussie, you live in this country, you're an Aussie, you walk the same land that I do. And the land that you walk on has been there for thousands of years. See, as Aboriginal people, we don't own the land, we never did. We were part of the land as the land was a part of us. And so the sacredness is in the soil, it's in the dirt, and for the powers that be allow you, sir, to find the remains of Mungo Man. Wow, you're indeed blessed. And it's fantastic that I'm actually in your presence, because I've always wondered about that. So you and I are going to talk at another stage, I hope, which would be good for me. What we're doing now is, this was new, I didn't know about this until last week, I think it was. Yeah, because we were supposed to go to Ethiopia together, yeah? Go and hang out with the Bob Marley's boys and Rastafari music, you know. Can you imagine him in dreadlocks? It's a scary sight. And so that's been cancelled, but to me, this is more important. I'd rather stay here and see things through this way than go elsewhere and entertain. This is my country. This is my home. This is my mother. And not growing up with a mother. I met my parents, which I was very lucky. Many, many didn't. So growing up here as a son of the land, it's very important. And for other people to come along who are not Aboriginal people, man, that's awesome. I remember hearing a speech, and I'll be very quickly, sorry, brother. Martin Luther King mentioned, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said he had a dream. And then we also had Mandela, who turned around and talked about his Rainbow Nation. Well, when you look at our history, we're called the Rainbow Serpent people. And our land is known as the land of dreaming. And so what they look forward to, we already have here. And that's the thing that we've got to grasp hold of. You know, if you want to sort out any reconciliations that you may have, or even reservations you may have, deal with it in here, because it's a national issue. It doesn't belong to the Aboriginal community only. It doesn't belong to the leaders of the governments and that to sort it out. It belongs to everybody here. And I know all of you here are here because you've dealt with that. And that, to me, I'm going to go away from here, hyped right up, I'll tell you. Kids are going to put up with me all night. Sorry, boys. So, guys, on that note, look, thank you very, very much for inviting us and allowing us to hear our speakers today. We haven't finished with what we're doing, and we're only just starting with this. Thank you very much.